Welcome back everyone. So in this video we're going to do a quick demo of the programs related to the while loop or the while statement that we saw in the previous video. So we have the first program, which was basically multiplying a number by itself and then stopping when the value of the product exceeded 100. So let's quickly run this program and see if it works. Alright, so you see that this 3 is multiplied by itself repeatedly until the sum is 243, which it is, and so that's when it stops. So let's just quickly add a breakpoint to this program, and it's actually quite useful to examine how this program operates in debug mode. So let's run this quickly, and so you see that your program stops at line number 8. Let's execute this line. You get an integer variable product whose value is 3. Now at line number 10 you have the while statement. Is product less than equal to 100? Since product is equal to 3, so yes, the condition is true. So we go into the body. In the body we multiply the variable product by itself, by 3, and then to store the resulting value back into the variable product. So 3 times 3 is 9. You can see the value updates to 9. Now your program again goes back to line number 10, and this time the value of product is 9. It goes ahead and checks that it's less than 9, so it goes back into the body, executes this. Now this is 27, goes back to line number 10. The statement is again true, the condition is true, it goes back in. This time product is 81, goes back up, checks, and this time around when it multiplies 3 by the value of product, you get a value of 243. And so when you go back up, now the condition is false, product is greater than 100, so you exit the false statement and you go to the next line where you just print the smallest power of 3 larger than 100, and that value is, let's quickly see, it's 243. So your program basically exits at this point. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to execute the second program, which was basically computing just the average. So I have that already saved, so I'm just going to copy paste that into Visual Studio, and let's give that a go. So what do we have in this program? We again we first of all have an unsigned integer for the counter variable, and we have the grade, which is also an integer. Total and average for now is also an integer, and so what we're doing here is we are using the counter variable as a check variable. So our loop basically depends on the value of the counter variable. As long as this value is less than or equal to 10, we will keep repeating the statements inside the body of the while statement, which are these 4 statements over here. So what are these statements? Well, we ask the user to enter a grade, then we add that grade to our running sum of the total. So whatever values we had before for the grades, we're just adding them up. So we're building them up, and then we're incrementing the counter every time a value is entered. And then finally, once the user has entered 10 values, then we exit the loop and we compute the average. So let's first quickly test that this program works. Now, for simplicity, to make it quicker to run, I'm actually going to use 5 values. So I'm assuming I have 5 students rather than 10, so it will take me less time to compute the average. And so let's run this and see what it does. Okay, so enter grade 90, 90, 90. Let's say all students got 90. And in this case, our average should also be 90. So after entering 5 values, our class average is 90 because all students got 90. We can of course try some different values too. So let's just say 85, 80, 100, 60, 45, and your class average now is 74. Okay, so next what I'd like to do is maybe insert a breakpoint and see how this program runs in debug mode. So we can do that. So let's give that a try. Okay, so first we initialize total to 10. You see the value changing over here. Down here the value of total changes to 10. Value of counter also changes to 1. Now when we get to the while statement, we're checking is counter less than equal to 5, and since counter is 1, yes, we go into the statement and we into the body, and execute the first statement, which is printf enter grade, which we see right here. Then we're going to ask the user to input the value. So let's say the first student got 55. Then we come back into the program, and here you see that your grade or your total was 0. So once you add 55 to 0, your total becomes 55. After that, you increment your counter by 1, so counter becomes 2. You go back up, statement is still true. You will ask the user to enter another value of the grade. Let's say we add 45. Once we add 45, and the new total will now be 45 plus the previous value of the total, which is 55. So it should now be 100. So it updates to 100. Counter is incremented. We go back up. Again, counter is 3, so it's less than 5. Ask the user to enter again. Let's say he enters 63. Now let's go back there. Increase counter. So now our total increase total. Our total now is 163. Increase counter by 1. Go back up. Counter is still less than 5. Ask the user to input another value, maybe somewhere around 37. So next, when we compute total, our new total value updates, counter updates, and then finally now counter is 5. So this is the last time that we will ask the user to input a value. So we go ahead and we do that. Let's say the new value is 75. So this is the last grade that we get. We evaluate the total, we evaluate, update the counter, and now the counter is 6. We go back up, we check it, condition is false, we come down, exit the while body, execute the next statement, which is average. So average right now is not initialized, so it just contains some initialization value that C assigned it by default. Once we execute this statement, you can see that your average is 55, and you can check that the average is 55. You can check these numbers, you can do this on the calculator. It looks like that it should be 55. So then you go ahead and you print your average, and then you exit the program. So now class average is 55. So yeah, so a simple program, but interesting to kind of run this in debug mode and then see how it works. So you can play around with this if you want. You can type it and try it for different values. Now the next thing we want to do is maybe change this program and get it to work for the general case where it works for as long as the user wants to keep entering the grades, and we said that we would do that using a flag variable or the sentinel variable or the sentinel value. So what we want is as long as the grade is not equal to this sentinel value of -1, we want the program to keep getting input grades from the user, and when the user inputs -1, then we want the while loop or the while statement to terminate and then compute the average based on the values that the user has already entered. Now in order to do that, we need to first define an unsigned int counter. So we need to have a counter variable which will keep track of how many values or how many grades the user has entered so far. So you could think of this as counting the number of students in the class. And in this program we're initializing this to 0 as compared to the previous program where we were initializing this to 1, and there's a very subtle difference between the two. You can think about that in your own time. The total is the variable which accumulates the values of the grades, so it keeps adding new values of the grades as they come in. And so let's quickly execute this program and see that it works. So 50, 60, 70, 90, and then as soon as I enter -1, it stops. Now another thing that you want to note in this program is that it can give you decimal values of the class average. So it gives you 67.5. Why? Because first of all we're defining the average to be a float variable, and also, and perhaps equally importantly, when we compute the average, we also convert the total and counter variables to floats as well, so we get the correct calculation. And so that's pretty much it. Thank you.